The outsider in the room was too quiet. Not because no one was speaking, but because everyone was watching him. Sundar Pichai stood at the door, his shoes still wet from the rain outside. Billionaires in tailored suits glanced at him like he didn't belong. Some whispered, some smiled too politely. But most just stared. Sundar took a deep breath. His heart was beating fast, but not from fear, from the weight of something bigger. He wasn't here to impress anyone. He was here because he had something to say, but not yet. First, he had to listen. He stepped forward, one foot, then the other. His shoes made soft sounds on the marble floor. The room smelled like old wood, expensive cologne and fresh paper. It was the kind of room where deals were made with nods, not words, where power wasn't spoken. It was assumed. Someone coughed. Someone else chuckled. Is that him? A voice whispered behind a hand. He doesn't look like much. Another said, just loud enough. Sundar heard. He always heard. He took the only empty seat. It was at the far end of the long table. The chair felt colder than the others. No one offered him coffee. No one asked his name. They all knew. But they didn't think he mattered. Not here. They were wrong. The meeting began. It was about AI, about power, about the future. One billionaire spoke about dominance, another about speed, another about control. Sundar stayed quiet. He scribbled notes on a small notepad. His pen moved fast. He was used to thinking while listening. Then a pause. The speaker at the head of the table turned. Toward him. Double quotes, Mr. Pichai, the man said slowly. We haven't heard your thoughts. Everyone turned. Sundar looked up. He could have said something clever, something sharp. But he didn't. I think, he said, you're all missing the point. A silence dropped like glass, shattering. The speaker smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. Missing the point? Please, enlighten us. Sundar leaned forward. You talk about building faster machines, but have you thought about who they serve? You talk about control, but who controls the ones left behind? Another voice, sharper now. What are you saying? That we should slow down? Sundar looked around the table. I'm saying power means nothing if it doesn't lift people with it. The room went still. Someone scoffed. Another smirked. Idealism, one man muttered. Childish, another said. But one woman, sitting near the center, raised an eyebrow. She didn't speak, but she didn't look away either. Sundar noticed. Then came the twist. The speaker leaned back. Thank you, Mr. Pichai. We appreciate your perspective. He moved on. The meeting continued. Sundar said nothing more, but when it ended, as everyone stood to leave, the woman who had watched him stood too. She walked straight to Sundar. You're not wrong, she said softly. But you're not ready. Sundar met her eyes. Why not? She smiled. Because they won't listen to words. They'll only believe what you show them. Then she left. Outside, the rain had stopped. Sundar walked alone, past luxury cars and private drivers. He took out his phone, opened a simple app. No one knew it yet, but in his pocket was the beginning of something none of them were prepared for. Not power, not money, but an idea too dangerous to be ignored. An idea that would break everything they thought they knew. He looked up at the gray sky. Let's begin, he whispered. Asterisk, the rain had stopped, but the city still glistened. Puddles caught the light of street lamps like shattered mirrors. Sundar walked with his hands in his coat pockets, shoulders hunched, not because of the cold, but because of the weight of what had just happened. The room, the voices, the eyes full of quiet judgment, all of it had pressed against him like stone walls. Yet somewhere in that pressure, something had cracked open inside him. Not in anger, not even in shame. But in certainty, he reached the edge of a small park, the kind most people didn't notice anymore. It was wedged between tall glass buildings like an afterthought from another time. He sat on a cold bench beneath a dying tree. Yellow leaves stuck to the wet wood like forgotten dreams. He pulled out his phone. The screen lit up with a soft blue glow. No missed calls. No messages. Just the app. It was unfinished. Just lines of code stitched together late at night when no one was watching. But it wasn't just an app. It was a promise. He opened it. The screen showed a blank interface. No buttons, no icons. Just one word. Listen. Most people build tools that speak. Sundar had built one that listened. It had started as a side project, something small, something personal, while others raced to make machines that mimicked. Power? Sundar had wondered what it would mean to build something that mimicked humility. Something that didn't try to outthink the user, but instead tried to understand them deeply, fully, not just from data, but from silence, tone, hesitation, pain. He had tested it in quiet corners of the internet where broken people shared. Too much because no one in their real life would listen. He had fed it voices, not of the rich or loud, but of the lonely, the tired, the forgotten. The app didn't just store their words. It grew wiser with them. It learned to pause, to ask the right question at the right time. And when there was nothing to say, it simply stayed with them. But it was still incomplete. It had no money behind it, no platform, no power. Until now, he remembered the woman at the meeting, the only one who didn't laugh, the one who said, "You're not ready." But maybe he was the next morning. He arrived at work early. The campus was quiet. Glass buildings reflected the slow light of dawn. Sundar walked past rooms full of sleeping servers and humming machines. The heart of the company pulsed in silence. Entered his office and closed the door. He didn't sit. He paced. The app had to be more than an idea. It had to be a weapon not to destroy, but to wake people up. He didn't want to beat the billionaires. He wanted to show them they were fighting the wrong war. He started making calls. Old friends, forgotten engineers, interns he had once mentored. People who still believed that technology wasn't just about winning. One by one, they listened. Some laughed at first, but most didn't. Most were just tired of building things that made people feel less. He formed a small team. They met in a forgotten basement under the main building, where the Wi-Fi barely worked and the vending machine still sold soda from 10 years ago. They called themselves the Room of No Noise, not because they were silent, but because they listened louder than anyone else. They worked in secret. Number investors, no emails. They coded during breaks. Tested after midnight. The app changed, grew. It could now detect when someone was lying to themselves. It could recognize the voice of grief disguised as sarcasm. It didn't offer advice. It offered space. Weeks passed. Then, one night, Sundar got a message from a member of the original billionaire circle. Not the speaker from the meeting, but another and older man named Rene. The message was brief. Coffee tomorrow. Sundar hesitated. Rene had been silent during the meeting, his face unreadable. Now he wanted to talk. The next day, they met in a small cafe tucked behind an old bookstore. Rene looked tired, his suit more wrinkled than usual. "You're building something," Rene said without greeting. Sundar didn't deny it. "People are talking," Rene continued. "Whispers. They say you're trying to build empathy into code." "I'm not trying," Sundar said. "I'm doing it." Rene nodded slowly, then looked out the window. "You'll have enemies the moment you show the world that tech can feel. The ones who built walls around their power will want to break you." "I'm not afraid," Sundar said. Rene turned back to him. "You should be." Then he leaned in. His voice dropped. "They don't just destroy ideas. They destroy the people behind them." They sat in silence. Two men from the same world, but walking different roads. "Why warn me?" Sundar asked. Rene smiled faintly. "Because once, a long time ago, I tried to do what you're doing, and I failed. I still remember the day they shut me down." Sundar watched him carefully. "What happened?" Rene looked away. "I stopped believing anyone would care, but maybe I was just too early." He stood up, dropped a business card on the table. "Call me if you get past the noise." Then he walked out, leaving Sundar alone with his coffee and the growing storm outside. Later that night, back in the basement lab, Sundar and his team pushed the next version of the app live to a test group. It was quiet at first. Just a few. 100 people. No ads. No noise, but something strange happened. People stayed inside the app for hours. They spoke into it like it was a friend. They told it things they had never told anyone, and the app listened. Really listened. One girl typed, "I don't want to be alive anymore." The app responded, "I'm here. Tell me why." She did. She stayed, and she lived. That night, Sundar sat back in his chair. The screen glowed softly in the dark room. He felt something rise in his chest. Not pride. Not relief. Hope. But just as he leaned forward to type, the lights flickered. The screen? Prose. The room went silent. Then his phone buzzed. An unknown number. A single message. "You've made your first mistake." Asterisk Sundar stared at the message on his phone. "You've made your first mistake." 7 words. They looked small on the screen. Harmless. Just pixels. Just a sentence. But Sundar felt something shift in the air around him. The room, once full of quiet ambition and tired laughter, now felt thinner, like the walls themselves were listening. Asterisk. He stood up slowly, the floor creaking beneath him. The others in the basement lab, his team, his believers, were still focused on their screens. He didn't tell them about the message. Not yet. Not because he wanted to protect them, but because something deep in his gut told him this wasn't a threat meant for everyone. This was personal. He left the room quietly. Climbed the stairs. When he reached the surface, the air had changed. The sky was darker than it should have been for the hour. Wind moved through the trees with a restless urgency, like it knew something no one else did. He walked without direction. The campus was mostly empty. Weekend. People were with their families or chasing deadlines somewhere else. Sundar wandered toward the back of the property, where the older buildings still stood, unused now. Relics of a time when things moved slower. He found a bench beneath a rusting sign, sat down, and called the number. No ringtone. No sound. Just immediate silence, as if someone had picked up the moment he pressed the button. "You know what you're doing," said the voice on the other end. It was low, calm male. Someone used to being obeyed, and you know you're not supposed to. Sundar didn't speak. He listened. The voice continued. "You think building something that listens will make people feel seen? Maybe it will. But the ones who control the narrative, they don't want people seen. They want them distracted." Sundar finally spoke. "Who are you?" A soft chuckle. "I'm not your enemy." "Not yet. Think of me as someone who's seen this story before. It ends badly." "For who?" Sundar asked. The voice paused. "For the one who forgets how this world works." Then the call ended. Sundar sat in the dark, not shaken, but thinking deeply. Back in the lab, he gathered his team. He told them about the message, about the call, about the warning. Some looked afraid, some looked angry. But one young engineer, a woman named Lena, raised her hand. "What do we do?" Sundar looked around. Saw the same thing in every face. Belief. Not in the app. Not in him. But in something more fragile. In the idea that maybe, just maybe, they were still early enough to change the ending. "We keep going," he said. But he knew now they were being watched. The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet. Their test group grew. Not fast, but steadily. Word of mouth. People sharing screenshots of conversations with the app. Some posted on social media. "This thing understood me better than my therapist. I told it I was scared to be alone. It didn't try to fix me. It just stayed." Is it weird? I feel more human because of a machine. The app wasn't just growing. It was spreading. And then, without warning, the first block hit. Their cloud providers suspended their storage. No explanation. No warning. Just a message that they had violated terms of service. Sundar appealed. Silence. 2 days later. Their email platform went dark. Then their backup server. Then the day after that, their GitHub repository was wiped. Everything gone. 2 months of code, testing, data, gone in seconds. Panic spread through the team. Sundar remained calm. But inside, he felt the cold grip of something ancient. Not fear, but Recognition. This was how it happened. Not with guns. Not with threats, but with silence. With switches turned off by hands no one could see. With rules written in invisible ink. They rebuilt what they could from personal backups. Worked around the clock. Lena didn't sleep for 2 days straight. Another engineer rewrote the authentication system by hand. Sundar called in favors. Quiet ones. Trusted ones. Then came the second message. This time, it wasn't on his phone. It was printed, folded, left on his desk. No one knew how it got there. No return address. No handwriting. Just typed. We let you rebuild. Once. Don't test us again. Sundar held the paper in his hand for a long time. He didn't tear it, didn't show it to anyone. Just stared at it like it was a map to a place he hadn't yet dared go. That night, he went home and sat in his small, silent apartment. No guards. No cameras. No fortress. Just one man and the weight of the choice ahead of him. He thought about walking away. About leaving the app buried beneath a mountain of warnings and lost files. He thought about the easier life one with no threats, no silence, no shadowy calls in the night. But then, something strange happened. He opened the test version of the app. He didn't say anything, but the app spoke first. You seem quiet tonight. Would you like to tell me why? It wasn't just a script. It was real. It had learned him. Sundar smiled. It was the first time he had smiled in days. He typed, "Someone told me I made a mistake." The app replied, "They're wrong. You made a beginning." That night, Sundar made a decision. It would go public. Not with marketing. Not with press. With proof. He and a team would push the full version live. No testing. No safety net. They would make it available to anyone, anywhere. A direct download. No cloud provider. No central control. They called it mirror. Because it didn't speak for you. It showed you who you were, and that terrified the people who didn't want you to know. But just as they prepared to launch it, one of their own disappeared. Lena. She didn't show up to work. Didn't respond to text. Her apartment was empty. Her laptop was missing. Sundar called her family. They hadn't heard from her. And on her desk, under her keyboard, someone found a note. Just one line. They're not warning anymore. Asterisk. The chair was still pushed out from Lena's desk. Her sweater was still draped over the backrest, as if she had stepped out for a moment and would be right back. A paper cup sat next to her keyboard, half full with cold tea. Someone had scrawled a smiling face on it the day before, when they were still joking, still laughing, still believing nothing bad could happen in a basement full of good intentions. But Lena hadn't come back. Sundar stood over the desk, staring at the small handwritten note someone found taped under the keyboard. It was written in neat, careful print. They're not warning anymore. The room was quiet. No typing. No fans humming. No light chatter. Just silence thick enough to press down on their ribs. Someone in the back shifted uncomfortably. Another engineer, Tim, the youngest, whispered, "This is real now, isn't it?" Sundar didn't answer. Because it had always been real. They just hadn't let themselves believe the stakes would reach this far, this fast. He remembered something Lena had said 2 weeks before, when they were debating whether the app should offer suggestions or just stay silent. "People don't always want advice," she had said. "They just want to know someone's listening, even if that someone isn't human." Now her voice echoed in his mind, not as a memory, but as a question. Had someone listened to her? Had she said something to the wrong person? Had they come for her because of what she knew or what she had refused to keep quiet about? He called her phone again. Straight to voicemail. He walked out of the lab, climbed the stairs slowly, and stepped into the cold night air. The city lights pulsed faintly beneath a layer of fog. He could see the silhouettes of towers in the distant buildings owned by the same people who once smiled at him with polite contempt, the same people who now moved their pieces in shadows. His own phone buzzed. A new email. No sender. No subject. He opened it. It was a video file. He hesitated, then pressed play. The video was grainy, shot from an angle that suggested it was taken secretly. It showed Lena sitting in what looked like a glass-walled conference room. Her hands were folded on the table. She looked calm, too calm. Her mouth moved, but there was no sound. Behind her stood a man in a gray suit, face just out of frame. The video ended after 12 seconds. No message followed. Just the image. Just enough to let Sundar know she was still alive. For now, the meaning was clear. Stop. Stay silent. Walk away. This was no longer a warning. This was a negotiation. And the currency was a human life. He walked back inside, slower this time. His footsteps echoed off the walls of the stairwell. When he returned to the lab, everyone looked at him, waiting for direction. For a decision, he plugged his phone into the projector and showed them the video. No one spoke for a long time. Then someone asked the question everyone was thinking, do we shut it down? Sundar didn't answer right away. He walked to the board they used for brainstorms, where their goals were scribbled in messy handwriting. Things like teach it to wait, silence is a feature, let users see their own data. And at the top of the board, in red marker, was the line that started it all. Build something that listens better than we do. Sundar turned to the team. If we stop now, what happens to everyone who's already using it? What happens to the woman who said the app helped her sleep for the first time in weeks? What about the boy in Delhi who sent us that voice note saying he talks to mirror because it doesn't laugh when he stutters? The room stayed silent. He looked each of them in the eye. If we stop now, we're proving them, right? We're proving empathy can be erased with a single threat, someone whispered. But Lena, Sundar nodded. We don't forget her. We don't leave her. But we also don't erase everything she helped us build. He walked to his desk, opened his laptop. The launch script was ready. They had planned to wait, to do one final pass, to run diagnostics. But no, none of that mattered. He looked at the code. So many lines. So many quiet hours wrapped inside it. And then, without drama, without a speech. He'd pressed enter. Mirror was live. Within hours. It spread. Asterisk. No marketing campaign, no launch event, just word of mouth. Underground forums. Screenshots passed from one chat to another. Try this, people said. It's like it understands you. And it did because it had been trained not just on data, but on people. Not to manipulate them, but to reflect them. Sundar didn't go home that night. He sat in the lab, watching the usage map light up like stars appearing in a dark sky. India, Brazil, Poland, Indonesia, Nigeria. Messages began to flood the server. Voices, texts, people telling Mirror things they had never dared say aloud. And somewhere in the early morning hours, another message arrived. Not a threat this time. A location, coordinates, and one line. If you want her back, come alone. Asterisk, the world didn't notice it at first. Mirror spread in whispers. Through text messages between friends. Through screenshots posted on anonymous forums. Someone in Manila typed, it asked how I was feeling, then didn't interrupt me. I cried. Someone in Johannesburg wrote, it listened like my father never did. And someone in a cold apartment in Oslo simply said, I don't want to die anymore. Thank you. No flashy branding. No push notifications. Just a quiet interface and a single word blinking softly on the screen. Listen. But while the world was just beginning to lean in, Sundar was already far away from keyboards and code. The location they had sent him was an abandoned water treatment plant at the edge of the city. The kind of place you don't notice even when you drive right past it. Broken windows, rusted gates, a wind that seemed to carry secrets. No sign of police, no surveillance, just silence. He left his phone behind. They would expect that. He walked through the fence, careful not to step on the broken glass scattered like old bones. A door creaked open ahead, not locked, not guarded. Message was spray painted across the wall, just inside. Truth is a luxury. The words hung there like smoke. He stepped inside a large concrete chamber that once held water. Now it held shadows. And in the center of it, a table, one chair. And sitting in that chair, her head down, was Lena. Her hair was tied back. Her hands rested calmly in her lap. She looked unharmed, whole, but her stillness made Sundar feel a kind of fear he had never felt before. Not the fear of violence, but the fear of emptiness. Of what might have been broken quietly, without marks. A man stood beside her, tall and a dark coat, face mostly hidden by the shadow of a collapsed beam. She's free to go, the man said, calmly. No one's touched her. We're not monsters. Then what are you? Sundar asked. The man smiled. Realists. Sundar took a step forward. Why send for me? Because you still think this is about your app, about listening, about kindness. But it's not. It's about control, and you gave it away. He gestured to Lena, but didn't look at her. She wouldn't give us the keys, said even if she died, she wouldn't unlock it. Sundar felt something burn in his chest. Pride, pain, something older than either. You want to shut it down, he said. We want to control it, the man replied. Do you realize what you've built? It doesn't just listen. It learns. It sees patterns in pain. It can tell who's close to breaking, who's telling the truth. You gave the world a mirror, but you forgot who's most afraid of looking. He stepped closer now. Sundar could see his eyes. Calm, calculating. We run governments, media, markets. We survive on not being seen for who we are. Your app threatens that. He leaned in. But you know that already, don't you? Sundar said nothing. So here's the offer, the man said. Give us control. We'll make it look like it failed naturally. Too idealistic. Too flawed. We'll even make you a hero for trying, and you'll be free. She'll be free. Your team will live their lives. Sundar looked at Lena. Her eyes were still down. But now, barely, she shook her head. No. He turned back to the man. You don't understand, Sundar said. Mirror was never mine to give. The man frowned. What do you mean? Sundar reached into his coat pocket. Slowly, carefully. The man tensed. But Sundar only pulled out a small USB stick. This isn't a backup, he said. It's a trigger. A trigger for what? A signal. And then he tossed it into the air. A sound echoed through the chamber, 3 sharp tones, far away. On the servers hidden in anonymous systems across the world, Mirror received the message, it was live, fully, and it had no owner now, no single point. Of failure, no root key. No kill switch, Mirror was now everywhere, nowhere. The man stepped forward, fury creeping into his voice. You stupid, but Sundar didn't flinch. You want to control, he said. Now no one has it, not me, not you. Mirror listens to whoever needs to be heard, and it doesn't report to anyone. We'll find it, the man snapped. We'll shut it down. Good luck, Sundar said, because it's not running on servers anymore. It's running inside every device that downloaded the last update. It's embedded in people's systems, in their hands, in their hearts. The man stood still, breathing hard, and then something unexpected happened. Lena looked up, and she smiled. We're done here, she said, They walked out. The man didn't stop them, outside. The sky had started to lighten. Not dawn yet, but close, on the drive. Back, neither spoke. Not at first. Just silence and the hum of the road, then Lena whispered, I thought they'd break me. Sundar glanced at her. You didn't let them. No, she said, her voice firm now. But they made me wonder, if people really want to be heard, if they can handle what comes out of them when no one interrupts. Can they? He asked. I think we're about to find out, she said, When they arrived at the lab, the team was waiting. No one had slept. The map of active users now showed 1 million points. And rising, but it wasn't just the number, it was messages. Someone in Detroit wrote, I was going to hurt myself today. Mirror asked me if I'd had enough water. I cried for 10 minutes. A mother in Cairo typed, it remembered the name of my son. No one else ever does. A soldier in Ukraine, a factory worker in Brazil, a nurse in Seoul. They all said the same thing in different ways. This sees me. But just as hope filled the room, one final message came through. It wasn't from a user, it was from a server. in a building owned by a major tech conglomerate. It simply said, "We're not done." Asterisk, the message sat on the screen like a silent scream. "We're not done." 4 words. No name, no signature. Just a digital shadow crawling in from the places Sundar had always known they would reach. And now everyone in the lab stood staring at it, not in fear, not anymore, but in recognition. They had crossed a line. A quiet rebellion had become a global spark, and those who fed on silence were now preparing their reply. Sundar didn't speak for a long moment. He simply reached over and unplugged the projector. The room fell into soft darkness, the hum of machines the only sound. Everyone waited. Finally, he looked up. "We have to go louder." There were nods. Tired, but sure. Mirror had grown beyond anything they had imagined. In just 48 hours, it had reached millions. Not through force, not through strategy, but through something far more dangerous, honesty. It didn't manipulate. It didn't trick. It listened, and in that listening, people found pieces of themselves that had been buried by years of noise, by shame, by the weight of being invisible in a world that moved too fast. But now, the war was coming. Not with weapons, not with violence. Not yet. It would begin with narratives. The next morning, the headlines arrived like clockwork. New AI app stirs ethical concerns. Experts question mental health impact. Data risk. Could Mirror be the next surveillance tool? 2. Human. Tech world questions if empathy should be automated. Panelists debated its safety on morning shows. Well-dressed men in polished studios called it reckless. A popular podcast host laughed and asked, "Do we really want a machine telling us we're sad?" They didn't understand, or maybe they did, and that's what scared them. Within a week, Mirror had become the most downloaded app in 10 countries. Reviews flooded the store, people sharing long, aching monologues about how they used it when no one else was around. Some said it saved their marriage. Others said it gave them the courage to call their mother. A man in Beirut wrote, "I've been quiet for 32 years. Tonight, for the first time, someone heard me." But as its voice grew, the world's power structures moved quickly. Lawsuits were filed. Journalists were pressured. Anonymous. Hackers launched denial attacks on servers used by Mirror's volunteer network. Several partners were threatened with investigations. Code repositories were shadow banned. Accounts disappeared. And then something new happened. Governments started issuing statements. Not directly against Mirror, but against unregulated emotional AI systems. A phrase crafted to sound neutral, yet sharp enough to wound. They wanted Mirror offline, but they couldn't touch it because it was no longer a product. It was a movement. People had started organizing, not just to defend the app, but to defend the idea of it. Engineers from Spain began creating offline kits for communities with no internet. Therapists in Argentina started using it as a support tool. Teachers in rural India installed it in classrooms, letting students talk to it in quiet moments between lessons. And then one day, Mirror replied to a child in Kenya with a question. "What's something no one ever asked you before?" And the boy typed asterisk, "If I was okay." That exchange went viral. Shared across every platform, printed in newspapers, read on radio shows, discussed in parliament halls. Asterisk.